It's in Dublin, Ireland. Number 22, Iowa State, taking on number 17, Kansas State. The Wildcats laying 3. They're minus 160 on the money line. Cyclones plus 135. Total set at 50 and a hook. Chelsea, I think, just based on what I've been listening to from earlier in the show, I think we're going to be on opposite sides here because I think you like Kansas State and I think I like the Cyclones.
I feel like it's tough this time of year because I feel like the first of the year in college football is kind of difficult because you're still answering some questions. But for me, the real question in this game is how is Iowa State going to stop the rush attack of K-State? Because I think the running game is going to be big in this one because early in the season, I feel like the run game kind of wins out because offenses are still finding their footing. And speaking of finding your footing, when you're playing at a soccer stadium, I feel like the turf is kind of going to be torn up a little bit in the second half. So I think Iowa State has some issues stopping, Avery Johnson in this one. He's going to be an impactful player for Kansas State this year, a returning quarterback, and Kansas State has been a stable pillar in the Big 12. 3 straight seasons with 9+ wins. But Iowa State certainly has some redeeming qualities as well. Like, it's not shocking to me that you find, some good qualities with Iowa State because Matt Campbell has been one of the better head coaches to bet on in all of college football. 11-3 last year, won the Pop-Tarts Bowl. But again, I think it comes back to me with Iowa State is really good at defending the pass, but I have questions on how they're going to stop this rush attack of Kansas State. So, that's the key matchup for me.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a high-quality Week 0 matchup, and you don't always get that in the first week of the college football season because it's so early on and teams are sort of, sometimes still not learning how to tackle, but, you'll see some sloppy play early on because it is so early and it takes a while for teams to sort of come together and find their individual grooves. But with these two teams, we're talking about 2 really experienced squads, right? So Iowa State has 18 projected starters returning. KSU has 17. You've got both quarterbacks who played last year, whether it's Rocco Brecht for the Cyclones or Avery Johnson, a QB like you were talking about for the Wildcats. And I've heard some people say if you're looking for a dark horse at Heisman, maybe it's Avery Johnson. I know he's not necessarily in the mix when you talk about Nussmeier or Klubnik or Arch Manning, but this guy can play. Certainly, I'm going to lean Iowa State here, but they have to find a way to contain Johnson. He's the real key here, I think, for Kansas State because he's such a dual-threat guy.
Yeah, but it should be noted that both these teams have, skill position and their quarterbacks returning. So it should be a good game. And I think if this line was 3.5, because I remember, reading up on both these teams before I saw the line, and I was like, I feel like it's really evenly matched. So if it's over 3 and it's 3.5, I think I would take the points with Iowa State because obviously, that's the logic is that if you think it's a close game and the underdog has a shot, wouldn't you take the 3.5? But this one's 3. So I don't know. It's not my strongest handicap. And plus, whenever you start a season, there's a lot of unknowns. And that's usually when I don't go big when it comes to I'm going to mega max mortal whale lock on this. I'm not doing that in the first week of the season, especially when it's a game overseas where it's a neutral site game. So I don't know what you make of this one. I don't think I have a play on a total. It does feel to me that we're going to see a lot of running the ball from Kansas State, but Iowa State's a pretty solid passing attack. Rocco Becht is a better passer, it feels like, maybe than Avery Johnson, but they did lose their top 2 wide receivers to the NFL last year. So again, is it next man up for these type of programs? We'll see.
Yeah, I think if you're Iowa State, you've got 4 of your 5 offensive linemen returning, so that's huge. And Brecht, I think, can have some success sort of in the middle of the field against that Kansas State defense. I will also say, look, even though it's a neutral site, Iowa State was really good away from Ames last season. They went 5-2. And also, in this particular series, let's not forget, this is Farmageddon. All right, Farmageddon. This is one of the better names, one of the best names, honestly, for a rivalry. I know we don't necessarily put Kansas State, Iowa State amongst the great rivalries in college football, but it's a pretty good one. And also, Iowa State has covered the number in 5 straight in this matchup. So it opened at, I believe Kansas State was laying 4, then it went to 3.5, went to 3, sort of seeing some Cyclones money come in. I feel like this is going to be one of those last possession games decided by a field goal. So because of that, I think that's why I'm leaning Iowa State here.
Care to guess the betting splits over at BetMGM? Have you looked at these?
I have not. Enlighten me.
So I know we say this as a detriment, is that you don't necessarily want to back the public, but the public is all over Kansas State in this one. 70% of the bets over at BetMGM laying the 3 with K-State. 69% of the money line bets, nice, on K-State, because you could go that route as well. So let's stop there for a second. What is the determining factor for you in between taking a money line bet and a short number? Because obviously, like, 3 is a short spread, but the total in this one is relatively low for a college game at 50.5. So I do think points are gonna be at a premium. Would you tell a bettor that's high on K-State, would you say, hey, lay the extra juice, take the money line? Or do you say, hey, 3 is a key number, just leave it on 3?
That's a tough one. I think I would, because I think I just lay the 3. Like at 3 and a hook, I wouldn't lay it. But if you like Kansas State, maybe you think worst case scenario, you get a push here. But for me, I would grab the points with Iowa State. So I'm going to go against the public here. But I do think maybe you just lay the 3. I mean, minus 160 is kind of right there on our threshold. And I also, here's another thing. Like, I also think the over is the play here. Like, I do think this total is too low. And I think that each of these offenses can attack particular weaknesses in the opposing team's defense. Like, can Iowa State stop, can they stop that Kansas State rushing attack, or can they stop Avery Johnson at quarterback? That's going to be key. And then conversely, I think Iowa State can have success running the ball behind that big offensive line. Again, I think they can have success attacking the middle of the field. So I think we could see kind of a back and forth game that is maybe decided by a field goal. And if that's the case, again, then for me, that's why I would lean Cyclones, but I wouldn't talk anyone off of laying 3 with Kansas State.
Yeah, I thought it was an important point to bring up, because I think I'm still kind of in the mindset of betting on baseball, and laying minus 160 on the money line for baseball feels like a different bet to me. So value is always relative, but just wanted to get people back in the headspace of betting on football, because when you look at this total, like going back to that, 50.5 is right below a key number of 51. Because I think if you're betting totals, like, a good exercise is to try to predict the score, because sometimes it's a better way to, like, visualize, hey, like, these are the scores we're looking for. Obviously, multiples of 7, multiples of 6 are highly popular, but you're with the public there. 67% of the bettors over at BetMGM on the over right now, as it sits at 50.5, slightly juiced to the over. If you look at last year's game in Dublin, it was Georgia Tech that won 24-21 over Florida State. I do think we'll see a little bit of chaos, though. Like, isn't that why we love college football, especially early in the season? Honestly, I feel like this game will be decided by, like, one big play, whether it's like a pick six or a kick return, especially early on in the season. I feel like that's when the games just have a little bit more volatility to them, which I think kind of shades towards the over. Maybe it shades toward the dog as well, but that's why I won't be going big on this game.